Hello, everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to invite you to look very closely and capture this moment together. Please raise your hand if you remember how many times I blew into this balloon before it popped. Little to no hands. Now please raise your hand if you remember hearing the balloon pop. Exactly. Everybody in this room remembered the pop because it was loud, sudden, and quite frankly, even impossible to ignore. But what we always fail to remember are the number of breaths that came before it. And come to think of it, that's usually how most people experience success stories. Loud, sudden, and attention-grabbing. And that's why to most people, success often looks like luck, because they only notice the final moment. But what if our perception of success and luck was actually blinded by what meets our eyes? I want to ground this notion with you in a concrete experience of mine. Almost a year ago, I graduated from the American University of Beirut, during which I took part of the International Case Competitions program, which is known to be the most rewarding learning experience any student can have within their university years. And for those of you who are not familiar with what case competitions entail, I want you to think about them as the Olympic Games, but for business schools. Students from all over the world team up in 4 to solve a real-world business challenge for a real-world case company. And the task is very clear. You have to analyze the problem, ideate a strategy, prepare a PowerPoint presentation, and then present it in front of the executives of the company. Now, I'm proud to say that over the course of 3 semesters, I represented AUB in Lebanon in 11 international case competitions, placing on the podium 8 out of those 11 times, making them the highest numbers achieved by any student in the world. But honestly, the more interesting part of the story comes here. Almost every single time I came back from a competition and sat back in the classroom, I had people come up to me and tell me the exact same words. You're lucky. Lucky to travel as a student, lucky to compete at such a high level, and lucky to be liked and selected to travel to more than 10 countries. And honestly, that made complete sense. Because what people saw from the outside were the outcomes. The travel, the fun, the recognition. And come to think of it, that's usually where 99% of all stories end. But there's always that 1% of the story that most people miss. The 1% of the story that lies within the principles of hard work that I carried with me all along those years. The 1% of the story where the volume of the work I had put in more than 700 days of my life, had long negated how lucky I was in the eyes of people. And let me tell you more about those days. I remember before my very first competition, I had to go through the winter break training, which is notoriously known to be the most intense training program any delegate can pass through within their case competition years. Training means commuting to AUB, solving a case, presenting it to the director of the program, who's actually with us today in the crowd, and then spending hours and hours taking in feedback and refining our skills. But honestly, that's not the end of the story. The winter break at AUB extends to a period of 40 days. And my team and I trained for 35 out of those 40 days. And believe it or not, the only reason we were allowed to take those 5 days off in the first place was to have time to cut our hair, see our families for Christmas, and celebrate New Year's with our loved ones. But I understand. This already sounds extreme, and it already sounds enough. But yet again, there's that 1% of the story that most people miss. The 1% of the story that lies within those 5 days. Because look, to me, those 5 days were not days off. I categorize those as solo days. Days where I trained harder, and days where I trained with even more intensity. And I remember one of those days being New Year's Eve. And just like any Lebanese family, the tradition is to sit in the living room and watch people talk about horoscopes on TV to see who will have their luckiest and unluckiest years ahead. Now, I'm personally born on December 21st. So to some people, I'm a Sagittarius. To other fanatics, I'm more of a Capricorn. But look, honestly, that night, it didn't even matter. Because both were said to have their unluckiest years ahead. Now, what struck me the most was not really the statistic itself, but rather the timing. Because 9 hours prior to that exact moment had been already spent on my laptop, going through the cases we've solved and continuously working on my areas of development. So if we pause together and reflect on the moment, at that time, nothing looked like success. There was no audience, apart from my parents. There was no recognition, apart from the one coming from my laptop. My balloon had not even popped yet. And in those times, this is where the illusion of success and luck usually comes from. Everyone around you will always want what you have, but they will never notice nor acknowledge how you got it. See, if we always tie success to outcomes, we'll always feel behind. And success will always feel lucky. But if we start noticing the volume it takes to get there, luck starts to matter less in the success equation. Now, what struck me the most is that this notion of success and luck was not really confined within the walls of the classroom, nor even restricted to the realm of case competitions. But it even extends to your personal and even your professional lives. See, because later that year, I started a consulting internship at one of the top consulting firms in the world. And just like any individual who broke into the industry, everyone around me warned me about one specific thing: pressure. Pressure from the long hours, pressure from the heavy workload, and pressure from the high expectations. But few weeks within my internship, and even towards the end, I felt something a bit unfamiliar. Not pressure, but composure. Even though everything around me indicated that the pressure had to be felt. My job was on the line, I was the youngest person at the firm, and I was the most inexperienced person on my team. But again, composure. And so I started asking myself the same question over and over again. Am I really lucky, like most people call me? Or maybe I'm just oblivious or even careless about my future. But then again, maybe not. And then on a random Sunday, before heading to the next work week, I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through pictures and videos from my case competition years. The same pictures and videos that most people know about. Pictures of trophies, travel, and recognition. But then as I'm scrolling, I stumbled upon an extremely boring picture. A picture that probably interests absolutely no one. A picture from one of my solo days. And then, it finally hit me. The internship didn't feel easy because it was actually easy. The internship felt easy because the volume of the work I had put in during those case competition years had already absorbed the pressure for me. See, because while you're breathing into your balloon again and again, you're not just getting one step closer towards the pop, but you're also building something even more meaningful underneath. Your character, which to me is the most transferable skill any individual can attain and grow through volume and hard work, which is the same engine behind every single success story you can think of right now. So if there's one thing I would like you to take away from today's talk, it's the following. If you're holding a balloon right now, it's probably not blown yet. And that's exactly the point. Pick one thing in your life and apply volume. Breathe into your balloon again and again and start creating your own luck. And I really hope by doing so, you change your perception of luck from one that is inherited to one that is merited. I hope you change your perception of luck from a clover to a balloon. Thank you.